Welcome to the Buy Box Bandits podcast.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Buy Box Bandits podcast presented by Sellerant. Make sure to check that out if you already haven't. We have Shane from BrickBucks here today to talk all things Lego investing and everything like that. The owner of one of, if not the biggest Lego investing YouTube channels. We've done some content together in the past, so we're excited to dive into that whole world because those OG BBB listeners know that I am born and raised in the Lego world, multiple decades running at this point and everything. So thanks for joining us, Shane. Nice and early.
Thanks, Miles. I'm happy to be here.
Sweet. Absolutely. So you got a great setup. The YouTube viewers are blessed today as well. You guys listen on the podcast platform, check it out on the YouTube as well, post them on all platforms and all that. But take us back to the beginning and how did you get into the interesting world of Lego investing?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So like you, I have a background with Lego, grew up with Lego, building Lego and different things. I mean, you have a lot of really interesting stories and how you turn that into a hustle. But for me, I never knew the value of it until, around 2017 or so. I only looked at it as a thing to play with and build. And then I moved to the US in around 2017 for a day job. And during that time, I kind of had this urge or this, desire to try and go bigger than that, right? And to, try and find something that was a little more lucrative for my future. I was doing stocks. I was doing, I was looking at real estate and different things like that. But I hated the idea that you would have to wait like 30 years to have real wealth in your stock market portfolio. So I was thinking, how can I go further than that? And I was really tempted by the idea of starting a business, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And then one day I was browsing eBay for old Lego sets that I built back in the day that I wanted to rebuild, now as an adult. And I was thinking, I wonder how much those sets are going for these days. I'd love to pick them up. And yeah, I almost hit the floor when I saw the price on eBay. These are sets that were, 15, 20 years old. Yeah. So of course they were going to have appreciated, but it blew my mind. I didn't realize what happens with Lego sets in the aftermarket value until around 2017. And then, it quickly turned into something a lot bigger. I think I spent a whole weekend looking at Lego set values and, even sets that have just retired the previous year. I started finding out this whole world of Lego sets. They're on a schedule, like they retire on a schedule. And if you do enough digging and try to kind of connect into that, you can learn what that schedule is. You can learn when they're expected to retire, and you can have a pretty good idea that the value is going to grow in the next year or two. And so the more I looked into that over the first weekend, the more I was like, I have to get involved with this. Like it's combining some of my big loves in life, my Lego addiction when I was younger with my more recent addiction to investing in stocks and different things like that. And then I started realizing that it was combining investing with Lego, but also with e-commerce and business, which is what I was yearning for, that whole idea of starting a business to be able to kind of create a side income and work toward financial freedom in a much faster time frame. So combining e-commerce, investing, and Lego, it was just a perfect storm. So that's kind of where it started for me. And from there, I quickly started buying sets in 2017. Did not know what I was doing, made tons of mistakes, bought sets that were brand new, which is in the Lego investing community is a cardinal sin. It's like, why buy a set that's brand new when it's now going to sit on the shelf for the next 2 years? Because the value only starts to increase when it retires. So why not buy stuff that's retiring sooner? It seems like common sense. I didn't think of it that way at the time. I was buying sets that were new just because I thought they looked good. I was walking into stores and just, this looks like it'll be in demand. I bought the architecture Guggenheim set way too soon because I thought to myself, architecture and Guggenheim is one of the most popular architecture designs in the world. I'll get that. And, I just wasn't doing any sort of research or anything, but over time stumbled into more and more ways to pick sets that were going to be winners and then started to kind of see the results and quickly started to grow from there. So that was the start for me.
That's the problem with Lego is that it's one of those big brands, so you'd figure it'd be really good, the stuff that's available now. But because Amazon, they carry it themselves, it doesn't tend up. They're really good for anyone listening that might be new. The really good times to flip Lego are like Shane's saying, either after the set's retired, right? Toys, they often have a shelf life with like different movies, different trends going on, as well as in December when Amazon sells out on different items and everything like that. So just to kind of set the precedent about Lego investing, you're doing both Amazon and eBay, right? And other platforms, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah, we do Amazon and eBay, primarily Amazon, but eBay, honestly, we started on eBay, and it's a great solution for anybody who's worried about getting ungated on Amazon or anything. You can do all of this on eBay, and honestly, the prices on eBay are still fantastic. I do want to kind of like definitely double down on what you just said there, Miles, which is, for anyone listening in your audience, obviously it's a lot of online arbitrage and moving stuff quickly. The idea here with Lego investing is buy and hold. It's applying the same concepts that you've learned with selling on Amazon or eBay, but it's just introducing this element of holding the inventory for a little while first. So you could buy it, hold it for a year or 2 years, and the price is going to keep rising during that time. Hold it for a year and then sell it. The beautiful thing about that is, firstly, the supply starts to dry up, right? Because when the set retires, it's not being manufactured anymore. That means retail stores start to run out of their stock. That means that Amazon runs out of their stock. So now on the Amazon listing, it's just you and third-party sellers. That's great for a handful of different reasons, but one of the big ones is, if anybody out there is used to the penny wars, like the price war that happens on a lot of, the items that you may be selling online, that doesn't really happen as much on Lego because the supply is constricted, and the supply starts to dry up. So if you wait a year after retirement or 2 years, the longer you wait, the less supply will be out there. The lowball sellers will sell out, and then you're going to get to a world where, the price is going up and not down, which as a seller online is an amazing place to be. So we do Amazon and eBay, but we prefer Amazon and FBA to simplify things.
Now, for like the novice sellers, why exactly is the price going up? Is it because they're specific themed Lego sets and they're not making them anymore, and that's why they're going up, right? Because conceptually, it's a toy. So, I mean, why would it go up in value years after it's done being produced?
Yeah. So the supply coming down, like I talked about, is one of the biggest reasons. So it's like when the set is no longer manufactured, retail stores can't stock it, so the supply starts to come down, which is amazing. But the second half of the coin, obviously, is the demand, and that doesn't come down nearly as quickly. The demand on Lego sets is so strong, and it stays so strong even after a set retires. And the interesting thing is, Lego Group themselves, their entire strategy is around continuing to make people collect, right? It's around collectability. They released a new set this year that in some way relates to the sets that they released last year, so that the people who bought it last year, they're going to want to be repeat buyers. They're going to want to buy more stuff. So that's their strategy, and that's why they retire the old stuff and bring out the new stuff, so they can free up shelf space, put out new products, and then the same customers are going to buy the new products. That strategy that they have is amazing for us, because that keeps up the demand. Because if you, for example, there's a line of Lego sets right now called the Lego Star Wars helmets, right? It's a helmet series. It's kind of a Lego set of Darth Vader's helmet, Boba Fett's helmet, all the different Star Wars helmets. And if you are a collector of Lego sets and you have Darth Vader and Boba Fett on your shelf, there's no way you're not going to want Stormtrooper, right? But Stormtrooper retired last year. So the only way you can get Stormtrooper now, you can't go into Walmart and buy it. The only way you can get it is go to Amazon or eBay third-party sellers. And so that demand stays super strong because of that collectability factor. People, Lego collectors are very passionate about it, and they just don't want to leave the collection without that Stormtrooper in it. So they go looking for it. So we have this continued demand, even a year, 2 years, 3 years after retirement, but the supply is just on the downward trend because the retailers can't restock. So it's a perfect environment for prices to continue to go up.
And so Lego strategically almost like releases unique sets each and every year and each and every couple of years.
Yeah, every year they release hundreds of new sets, and they retire hundreds of old sets. So, and the average shelf life for a Lego set is around 2 years, and it varies by theme. So some themes go for 2.5, 3 years on average, and some are like less than a year. But on average, if you average it all out, it's around 2 years on the shelf, and then they stop making it. They stop manufacturing. And then they just bring out a new set to take the place of that set on the shelves in retail stores, and they do this with pretty much all of their sets. Almost every single set will have a retirement date. There's very few that are kind of like evergreen sets. There are a few that have been around for 6-7 years now and still are not retiring, but most sets will retire on some sort of schedule, and then they'll release new stuff to take its place. So we can be fairly sure as Lego investors that the retirement will happen, and after that retirement, the price will either go up really nicely or it will go up slowly. It's very, very rare, or it's in fact never happens that a price will go down after a set retires. It'll at very least it will stay flat. And if you were able to buy that set at a discount, then even when it's flat at the MSRP value, you should be able to break even. So a lot of the times when we buy good inventory as Lego investors, a lot of the times our worst case scenario is breaking even, and our best case scenario is 200% return on investment.
In 18 months or whatever the target would be. So are you using like the traditional Amazon tools like Keepa and everything like that?
Yes. Yeah. And SellerAmp is pretty good for Lego investing.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's looking for tools to kind of look into this, Keepa is great. SellerAmp is great. Anything that can give you ideas about, two main key points of information. Firstly, the sales data, right? The demand of the set. So that's the same stuff we always look at when we're flipping items online. That is, your sales rank data, or your the rank drops that happen that you can see on a Keepa chart. So that's super important for knowing how well a set is going to sell. It's also really useful for comparing sets against each other, because the biggest thing with Lego investing is not just finding a set that will grow in value, it's finding the best set that's going to grow in value. It's like, what's the best opportunity? And you might be looking at 3 Speed Champion sets, and you might want to pick one of them, right? So, and some people will buy all 3, but if you want to pick the absolute winner, then you look for these key pieces of information in the data. Which one is selling the best is awesome. But then you also want to look at things like the supply. So you could look at, how many people have listed the other sets. Does it look like it's going to be over hoarded or oversupplied in the aftermarket? Or is it an opportunity where there's not that many people who've got this set listed? So maybe it's kind of flying under the radar of the community. We've also built our own bots. So, in my communities, I have a kind of a membership where we have bots. So we use our own internal bots it's kind of like a Lego set, winning set search engine kind of thing. Then we use Keepa and SellerAmp and a handful of other tools.
Now, are you specifically looking for Lego branded items, or does this inflation spike in price happen across other brands too?
So it does happen across other brands. In fact, it's not only building sets that this kind of you can do this with. You can do it with a lot of collectibles. So for example, you could invest in statues, like in superhero statues, or you could invest in, action figures and different things, Pokemon cards, baseball cards. Funko Pops is a very popular one. And some of our community also dabble in Funko Pops. In terms of building sets, there are other brands that are kind of lesser known, but I don't really tend to look at them. And the reason I don't really look at those or dabble too much in other things, now I've done a little bit in comic books, but the reason I don't go deep on those other things, honestly, I find more than enough opportunity in Lego than I need. And if you can find enough opportunity in one core area of competence, it helps you to, learn it really well. And so I've been able to just focus all on Lego and just really kind of specialize in it. And as a result, I can pick better sets and different things like that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, people always ask me, like, why do you stick to mainly like clothing and sneakers and stuff with Amazon? Just because I still haven't needed to go elsewhere. You know what I mean? Like, I still, like, by building that competence within the one area, I know the best websites. I know what websites I can get a lot on. I know which websites I can't get on. Oh, it's actually snowing. Just saw that too. That's pretty cool. and everything. Yeah. Where are you, Shane?
I'm in New Jersey.
That's what I thought. So it's probably snowing for you too. You got the studio set up though.
Probably is.
On that.
I'm locked away from the daylight right now. But...
Got you. Okay, so I see you have one set behind you, and it looks like Harry Potter or maybe Lord of the Rings, something like that. Could you break down the? Wow, I thought that was way bigger. It was. Yeah, it's interesting the way your camera's set up. I thought that was way further away, and that was a huge set. Can you break down the numbers and your thought process with that on that specific item?
Yes, so this one is it's called Hogwarts First Flying Lesson. It's set number 76395, and the idea behind picking winning Lego sets, like I was saying, is a lot of it's supply and demand. Is thinking about the supply and demand, and the reason that I like this one is that the supply is going to be extra constrained on this set, and the reason it's going to be extra constrained is because this was an exclusive set to Kohl's in the US. So whenever Lego Group, so some Lego sets that are released are they're exclusive. Lego Group will have a partnership with some retailers, and they partner with Amazon on some sets, Walmart on some sets, Kohl's on some sets. So they will make a partnership where nobody else is allowed to sell that set. You will be able to find it in official Lego stores and on the official Lego website, but outside of those places, the only place you can get certain sets is one particular retailer that they partner with. Now, this set is exclusive to Kohl's, or was exclusive before it retired to Kohl's, and so that fact alone is a good indication, because now I know that there's going to be less of those sets ever manufactured, right? Because Lego Group only have to satisfy orders to Kohl's in the US. They probably partner with other retailers in other regions of the world, but in the US it's Kohl's, and for this particular set, only the quantity that Kohl's can sell through will be produced, because they're not giving it to Walmart or Best Buy or anywhere else. So the numbers that they ever manufacture for this set is going to be lower than other sets. Now, that's one big thing in in favor of this set. Now, then I also started to look at the demand numbers. Is the set selling well? What are the features about the set that make it, likely to continue in demand? So for this one, for example, it's the scene in the first Harry Potter movie where he first learns how to fly. It's an important scene for anyone who's a fan of Harry Potter. It's got minifigures in it. Minifigures can bring up the value, and I don't want to overcomplicate things, because honestly, I have like 16 different things that I can think about when I'm picking a set to invest in. But that came with a couple of years of building my knowledge on it. But for anyone who's new to this, like, you don't need to overcomplicate it, because when you think about the supply and demand, it gets you halfway there, right? So those first two things that I said, with the supply being constrained and a lot of factors working in favor of keeping the demand going, that's enough to know that at least you're not going to lose money, and most likely you're going to make money, because Amazon was, they never had stock of the item because it was exclusive to Kohl's. And so a lot of these exclusive sets, before it even retires, the Amazon price is already inflated because the supply is low. So if this is a $30 MSRP, Amazon listing was probably more like 35 to 40 before it even retired. And then it has a higher starting point. As soon as the retirement happens, those third-party sellers who were on the listing, they can't find it anymore. And so now the price goes upward from there. So a lot of the times you're kind of starting at a break-even point, and then it's just up. It's all uphill. The price starts to rise, and so you have a kind of an advantage. So there were some other factors here. There's like a collectible golden minifigure inside the box, and I like the kind of scene. And there's also this thing that I like to look for with Lego sets, where sometimes the main set in a series can get recreated. So, for example, if you're looking at Lego Star Wars, you don't want to invest in the Millennium Falcon, right?
I knew you were going to say that. I knew he was going to say that.
Yeah, it's the set that a lot of people would default to. They're like, oh, it's a Millennium Falcon, everybody's going to want it, right? When I was back in 2017, when I walked into those stores and I was just looking at the shelves and picking sets, Millennium Falcon is exactly the kind of set that I would have went for, because I just assume everyone wants it. But it's likely that Lego Group is always going to want to have a Millennium Falcon in their lineup, so they're going to keep recreating them, and that brings down the value of the past versions. So, and also that they get overhoarded by third-party sellers and different things. So I prefer to look for sets that are on the they're very important to the theme. Like in this case, they're very important to Harry Potter, but it's on the outskirts of the theme. It's not the Hogwarts Express. It's not the most important set, but it's kind of on the outskirts of it, if that makes sense. But it still has tons of demand, and the supply will be constrained. So I made it sound complicated with such a long answer, but those are some reasons that I like this set. And generally, after you spend a little time kind of learning how to do it, it becomes kind of second nature.
How do you know how many you're planning on buying, right? I mean, there's a big difference between, call it 50 or 70 and maybe 5, right? Where is that sort of indicator for you?
Yeah. So it differs based on price point, right? So with Lego sets, you can have $10 Lego sets, or you can have $500 Lego, actually $800 Lego sets. the range is kind of crazy with price points. So when I like to think about quantities, the first thing that I do is reset my mind to think about dollar values, right? Not quantities. Because if you think about quantity, you can like 100 of a $10 Lego set is a very different thing than 100 of a $500 Lego set. So I try to not think about quantity and instead think about dollar value. That's the first thing. So the way I like to approach it is think about how much do I want to invest this year, and then I basically build a hit list of Lego sets that I want to invest in. So I'll do that early in the year, and I'll look at what's going to retire this year. What are the sets that are coming up to retire at, soon? Because I don't want to invest in anything that's not going to retire soon. That's just going to sit on the shelf for a while. So instead I look at stuff that's going to retire soon. And then I start to build a hit list of sets that I like for some of the reasons that I just mentioned when talking about this one. And then when I have that hit list, I typically aim for, somewhere between 10 and 20 sets. So I don't want to buy 100 different Lego sets. I also don't want to just buy one Lego set, right? I want to get 10 and to between 10 and 20. It's a good area to have some diversification, but also be able to double down and focus, pretty nicely on making sure that you're picking the right stuff, not spreading yourself too wide so you don't know what you're doing. That's just my preference. I know a lot of other people who are successful in Lego investing who buy more sets or less sets than that. But I aim for 10 to 20. And when I have my hit list of 10 to 20 sets, then I'm prioritizing which ones I like the best. And then I'm taking that dollar value that I want to invest this year and I'm just breaking it down across the sets. So if I want to spend $100,000 this year or invest $100,000 this year, and I have 10 sets on my list, then I could either decide I want to put 10,000 in each one of them, or I could say I want to put 30,000 in my biggest pick, my pick number one, 10,000 in the next two, and then distribute the last 50,000 evenly across the last 7 sets. You know what I mean? So, and that's typically the way I do it. I allocate a bigger weight towards the sets that I'm most excited about, that I'm most certain about. Typically, those will be sets that I see some supply problems on and different things like that. And then I will allocate the rest of my budget to the remaining sets on my list. But I think about it all in dollar value as opposed to in quantity, if that makes sense.
Cool.
Yep.
And then can you break down the timeline, numbers, and like your thought process around the best lick you've ever hit?
So the best particular set?
Yeah, like
Mhm.
whether it be the largest dollar amount of profit or it way exceeded your expectations. Like, let's break down some exact examples if you're willing to share, so listeners can
Yeah.
go back and look at those Keepa charts to really visualize everything.
So you know what? I've got a YouTube video coming up soon where I break down 5 recent sales, and I actually have my slides right here. So if you want, I can show you a sneak peek on that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And then
I've actually
so
got
we'll talk through it as well. So the audio
of,
viewers. I just made
yeah,
some.
of course. I can share I've got 5 sets, recent sales, and they're literally the return on investment the whole time, what I bought them for. And I can talk through that. That might be a really good indication. But before I do that, I will talk about one particular set from last year, because it's in the Lego investing community. It's kind of like the holy grail. And this is, it was a very strong performer, and we can't always expect this to happen. But there was a set last year called the TIE Fighter Pilot Helmet. So it was one of those Star Wars helmets that I talked about. It was a Lego set that was exclusive to Target. And I bought it at around 50. And within around 4 months, the set was at 220.
Ooh.
So you're talking about, after selling fees, you're talking about a 200% return on investment at least, after a couple of months. Now, again, that was probably the strongest performer from last year. So it's not always like that, but I will share some recent examples here. Let me see how to share my screen.
Now, is your Amazon store 100% Lego or like toys specifically?
It's not. No. We do some OA as well.
Oh, hell yeah. I didn't even know that. I was meaning to ask that too.
Yeah, we do OA as well. Okay, sorry, 1 second, guys.
Maz, this is bringing you back to the good old days.
Seriously, like I could talk about this stuff all day, like, because I kind of have an eye, even though I haven't successfully done it. I have an eye for some of the stuff as well. I think in like exclusive characters and such.
Now, before we get going, is there like a standard dollar unit per like profit per unit or like value per unit that you look for in boxes? So like say one set's 50, right? What would you expect a 50-piece set to go for?
So you mean the number of pieces in the box?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's this thing called price per piece that the people who want to really nerd out on Lego investing can get involved in. You can basically take what price is the set selling for, and what's the number of pieces in the box, and you can divide the number of pieces by the selling price.
Yeah.
Or sorry, divide the selling price by the number of pieces. It'll give you a price per piece, and it'll be somewhere in the region of like 8 cents to 14 cents per piece in the box, usually, and it varies depending on the number of minifigures and different things, because minifigures can be
they hold like crazy weight.
Yeah, more value. So some people who really want to nerd out on this will calculate out the price per piece to see if it's really good value inside the box, and some sets will have a lot more value. What I will say about that is, honestly, it's something I keep in the back of my mind as a kind of a tool that I can leverage if I want to, but it's not that important. It's, in my experience, it hasn't turned out to be massively important because of what I just mentioned, which is minifigures, for example, they will be counted as one piece. So they'll be counted as an 8 cents piece. But a lot of these minifigures are worth a lot more than 8 cents, and they bring up the value or the weight. So some people try to get around that by calculating a price per gram, right? The weight of the set, and calculate that into the price. Honestly, this is kind of, it's overcomplicating things a lot. And a lot of the time, it's more about supply and demand. And a set that has a terrible price per piece or price per gram, and it seems like it's not great value, if people on Amazon want that set because it goes really well with another set that they're buying, and the collectability is there, or if it's super relevant to pop culture right now because the new season of Stranger Things just launched and it's blowing up, these are things that impact the price more than price per piece. So, I don't want any viewers to get worried that there's all these calculations you got to do or anything with Lego investing. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, and then just one more thing on that. I'm curious your thoughts on this, but I assume basically any name brand, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, basically anything, if you held it for 2 years and bought it in its last couple months, what you'd make money on.
So yeah, you do want to just make sure that you're not going to get re-released, right?
Yeah.
So some of those Star Wars sets and the Harry Potter sets will get re-released. That can happen. But it only happens in the big core sets, like I mentioned, of the Millennium Falcons or the Slave Ones, or in Harry Potter, it's the Hogwarts Express that just keeps coming out again and again. So that happens. And then the other thing is, if a set is oversupplied or over hoarded, then you may not really grow too much in value. A lot of the times you still won't lose money, right? But if a set, for example, is overproduced, if a Lego group makes too many of them, you'll know it because retail stores are going to drop the price by half, right? So if you look at if you go to Walmart and you see sets are selling for 50% off, it could be an indication that it's overproduced, and so that could mean there's going to be a lot of them out there in the aftermarket. That does mean that there'll be lowball sellers, so it takes longer for the price to rise. But over time, you're still not going to really do badly on a lot of those stuff. It really just depends on the supply and demand numbers and how they look. But if you learn how to look at those things, you could pick sets that are undersupplied in the aftermarket and the demand is super strong, and then the price shoots up. And so the example I gave of the TIE Fighter pilot helmet that was, $50 purchase, 220 within a couple of months. I was talking about that in multiple videos back in 2021. And the reason I was talking about it is because you can predict this stuff, right? This stuff is not, some people would kind of say, oh, you got real lucky with that. Like, that was not luck. And hence that's why I was talking about it in the videos.
Doesn't lie. Keepa does not lie.
Yeah, like I put the videos out there. I had multiple videos where I talked about that set. And the reason I talked about it so much is because it's clearly see that it was going to be undersupplied in the aftermarket. And I could clearly see that the demand was going to continue. And those two things combined means only one thing can happen with the price, right? It goes up and it goes up a lot. And so, it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's as easy as just, pick sets in Star Wars or Harry Potter. But I would say if you just put a little time into learning what to look for, you can pick stuff that will be incredible investments. Sweet. So should I jump in and talk about this? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, so we got forever. Yeah, so we just really need to read the set number so that the audio people can go on Keepa and look at it
Yeah,
there.
I'll talk through it. So anyone who's listening to audio, we're gonna basically walk through 5 quick, and I'll do it quickly. But these are sets that I sold recently, and I had put slides together because I was shooting my own video on it. So it's Ninjago Gamers Market is the first one. It's set number 71708. If you're looking it up, I bought it for $22.80 and sold it for $52.93. Profit per unit is $16.48. Now that's not going to sound that impressive for a lot of online arbitragers, right? $16.48 sale. But if you buy 100 of these, right, now you're talking about $1,600 of profit on this set. The whole time was a year. So you buy it, you store it away for a year, and then you sell it, the following Q4 or, some other time of the year. There's a few times of the year that are good for sales. The return on investment on this was 72%. And the return on investment calculates in the fees, selling fees, and different things as well. So after fees, it's approximate 72% return. Number 4 here, we have dinosaur fossils, and the return is going to get better as I step through these. So that was the worst example of these 5. But the dinosaur fossils set, this is Lego Ideas. This is set number 21320. I bought these for $45.60. I sold them for $105. And that was a profit per unit of $36.36, which again, by 100 of them, that's $3,500 of profit. Hold time was a year and a half on these ones. And there was a return on investment of 80%. Next up, we have Stormtrooper helmet. This is another one of those Star Wars helmet sets that I talked about. This retired at the same time as the TIE Fighter pilot helmet that got to those crazy numbers last year. This one took a little longer, but it still had, within a year, I was still doing almost 100% return on investment on this set. It was set number 75276, purchase price $45, sold it for $113. Profit per unit of $43.76 on this one, whole time of a year, 97% return. GTR Nismo, this is a Speed Champions set. So Lego Speed Champions, these are very reasonably priced. So if anyone wants to dabble in Lego investing and don't want to put too much money down at the start, you could look at some Speed Champion sets. They're $20 to $25 MSRP usually. I bought this one for $15.20. It's set number 76896. Sold it for $52. So that's a $15 purchase price, sold for $52 after 1 year. Profit per unit was $23.59, hold time of a year. Return on this one was 155%. So this had a massive ramp up. And this was another example of one that I predicted, and I talked about it in my email newsletter, where I kind of knew that, because with Speed Champions and anyone who nerds out on Lego, you'll kind of know that in the last couple of years, these sets, the Speed Champion sets kind of went to they had an upgrade where, there's kind of 3 of these base Speed Champion sets per year. The old sets were smaller, and then they changed them to be slightly larger. And as they made that change, the old sets got kind of stuck on the shelves for a little longer. They extended the shelf life. So they stuck around for an extra 6 months. And I kind of felt like because they were sticking around for an extra 6 months, Lego investors will be distracted by buying those ones, and they wouldn't be buying this wave, which were also retiring that same year. So I bought these ones because I felt like they were going to be undersupplied, right? And again, that's something you can predict if you just kind of look at it a little bit. And that's exactly what ended up happening, because this one and 2 others that retired at the same time as it all had massive performance last year. And this is number 1. So this is the best return. This is kind of ridiculous here. Set number 75264. It's Kylo Ren's shuttle microfighter. These microfighters are these little small Star Wars sets that are like $10. I bought this one for $7, sold it for $44.89. Profit per unit of $27.13 on a $7 investment. Hold time was a little longer in this one. It was 2 years hold time, but the return on investment was 388% on that. So compare this $7 Lego set with your stock market portfolio. And unless you got in on GameStop in 2021, I think it's unlikely that you're beating 388%. Now, again, this is the number 1 performer out of the last 5 we talked about. So not all Lego investments are like this, but honestly, I most of my sets, even the bad performers, is at least a 50% return on investment. So, and then then the question becomes, how high can I go from there?
Got you.
So that's it. Those are the slides for audio listeners. We just had a picture of the slide, but otherwise you got all the information.
Sweet.
How much ones did you get? The microfighter ones.
So can you repeat that? Sorry.
How many of these microfighter ones did you get? Do you remember?
So I didn't go big enough on this. I think I only had 10 of these ones.
Oh, come on,
Yeah.
Shane.
I know.
Yeah, lesson learned though. Lesson learned. Where do you
Lesson
store
learned.
it?
Yeah. A lot of the other sets here, I went much deeper on. Like that Nissan, I had 120 of
Oh,
the
there we
second
go.
position.
That was a big
Had
hit.
120. I think this microfighter one was I think it was like a box filler that I was adding to meet a shipping minimum or something like that at the time. It wasn't even a set that I was like, this is going to be the biggest performer ever. But then when I look back at my numbers, I learned from that and I start to figure, okay, maybe I should look a lot deeper at these microfighter sets. So you can really use your past sales to inform you on what you should be doing, in the future.
And where do you store all this stuff?
So yeah, I mean, I store them in in a storage unit in my basement, so you can do it in a handful of different places. I have a lot of people in my community that have creative storage options. Storage is one of the big kind of concerns that some people have when you get into it, because you're probably wondering, how can I free up enough space to put $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 worth of Lego into? Storage units is a great way to go if you have no space in your home. But I definitely think anyone who's starting out could start with a closet, a spare closet in your bedroom. When I first started in 2017, I had a little kind of a top piece of a closet. I lived in Manhattan at the time in New York City. So you can imagine how small the space is in New York. And I still got started. I put stuff under the bed for a while. But then eventually we got a warehouse for our Amazon business, for our book business in New Jersey. So we had a warehouse. Since we've kind of downsized a little bit in terms of the book business, but the Lego has continued to grow. So we've kind of moved it to some other spaces, but you could do it in all sorts of different places. We have people using garages. We have people using attics. We have people using their friends' houses. There's one of my members of my community he's got like 3 friends who he's using their attics, and he has a spreadsheet where he knows all his inventory is in which friend's house it's in. And then we have people who live on farms and rural areas, and they've built like kind of barns or sheds for their Lego investing. There's a lot of different ways you could do it. I do want to call out here, because this is primarily and probably an Amazon selling audience, that I don't recommend storing it with Amazon for long-term hold, right? I don't recommend sending this to Amazon when you first buy it and expecting you're going to hold it for a year or two with Amazon, because their fees can rack up substantially. So instead, you should probably hold it somewhere in your own kind of personal space or business space, and then send it into Amazon when the price meets your price target.
And so before we kind of wrap up here, talk us through kind of the rest of your business. What are the other sort of products you're looking for? How are you finding those? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so we do online arbitrage with kind of a lot of our, I guess, more day-to-day stuff, right? Because this is our buy and hold strategy. Lego is definitely by far my favorite product for us to sell, because of what I talked about with the price doesn't go down, it just goes up. And with our online arbitrage, we find that a lot of the times we are needing to compete heavily on price. But we do OA. We source it in a handful of different ways. We use SellerAmp. We use Keepa, a handful of kind of some of the strategies that Miles talks a lot about. So we use some of that stuff. We started out with OA using a lead list for a while, and that was kind of an easy way to get started there. We got our start with Amazon in books. So, around the same time that I was kind of learning about it, Lego investing, we were primarily doing that on eBay at the time, but then we started selling books on Amazon, kind of a pretty similar time frame. And that kind of scaled up into a storage unit and then into a warehouse. And we were doing truckloads of books, sorting through books by the pallet. And, then Amazon changed their restock limits last summer, or the summer before last. I'm losing track, as I'm sure you guys are probably impacted by as well. And a handful of other things happened that made us kind of want to, I guess, switch from books into more online sourcing methods. And that's where OA started to pick up for us. And that was a big part of our business. Now we are at the point where we want to pivot some more of our OA profits and investments over into Lego, and go bigger on Lego, because I've made it such a big part of my life, not only with our selling Lego business, but also with BrickBucks, where I teach people how to sell Lego. Now I know so much about it that it makes sense for me, because I can pick winning sets so easily to double down there. So we're kind of transitioning a little bit, but OA has been a big part of our lives. We made around 500,000 in sales last year, and that's combined. and Lego was around 130,000 of it or so, and the rest was OA.
Wow.
So the sales numbers on OA were bigger than Lego, but
I
the
was
profits on Lego were actually
Wait.
like the margins and return on Lego was a lot higher.
Sweet.
That's
So-
awesome.
And then, like, where do you think just the Lego side of things caps out, or do you think it doesn't cap out, and that you're always going to get better, you're always going to get more money, so you think you'll just keep doing that, like you see a clear path to do that for years and years and years?
I do, yeah. I don't think it caps out, because I have friends who are doing a couple million, and like you can do very, very large numbers on it. If you ever, and this is a common question I would get from people who are a little skeptical about it, and they think that it can't, like, as more sellers get involved, the demand can't sustain it. But if you ever look at a chart of Lego sales, it's not even like, it's insane how much it's grown, because like Lego Group themselves have grown so much in popularity. They're targeting adults now, and they're growing massively with this whole new audience. And the sets that they're releasing are so much better than they used to be. So Lego sales are massively increasing, and they're increasing faster than the number of sellers of Lego on Amazon is increasing. So we don't have this thing where like return on investments are getting worse every year. They're actually still like I haven't seen any indication that it's getting worse. So if that continues for the next 10 years, I'll be right here doing exactly what I'm doing right now. So for me personally, like I want to write it out as long as things stay on the path that they're currently on. And I think that's going to be very, very long time to the future. I don't particularly, for me personally, I don't particularly want to go back to the world of, warehousing and running a $10 million e-commerce business. So at some point when my business gets to the point where, it's making a couple of $100,000 in profit a year, I'll probably just keep it flat at that point and stop growing, and just, like, but the amazing thing about Lego investing is that there's less work involved than a lot of other e-commerce, right?
Way
And when you come
less.
from the world of books, it's nice to not have to scan books all day, because you buy the set, you buy 100 or 200 quantity, you put it away for a year. So that's a nice kind of business to be in if you scale it up, that it's making $100,000 or more in profit. So that's kind of my goal.
Yeah, and you said that the sets get better. Like, it's crazy from being like really deep into Lego like 10 years ago. Like, there's so many new pieces that the stuff people make, just like third party, just building random stuff, like is so much better than it used to be, because there's all these new pieces and stuff like that. For anyone listening, it's kind of interesting.
And their designers like have gotten so complicated, like so complex with what they're creating. And like, I do urge anybody who's listening who hasn't built a Lego set in years, give it a go. Like, go out and get one of those adults focused Lego sets. It will blow your mind what they have like how they've changed over time. And they're so complicated and detailed now, and it's a lot of fun. So it's very therapeutic as well. That will also give you confidence in the business of Lego, because you'll see just how much better these products are than most of the stuff that's out there.
Yeah. Got you. Sounds good, man. And then where can people find you on social media and YouTube?
Yeah, so my BrickBucks channel, my YouTube channel is BrickBucks. That's BrickBucks. That's for Lego money. Brick is a word that a lot of Lego fans will use instead of the word Lego. So it's BrickBucks, where I teach people how to invest in Lego sets, and I'll put up videos like the one I teased today, where I talk about my return on investments and how I run my business and different things. So I think head over to YouTube, BrickBucks, as a starting point, and I think you'll like what you see.
Sweet. Thanks, man. Sounds good. Thanks to everyone for listening. I'll definitely hopefully do another one of these in the future and everything, but thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode.